Good morning, church. Happy Sabbath. Friends, I will not preach today. How about that? You will preach. Here's the thing. I just understood that Ellen White once said two things. The first thing is that my role as a pastor is not necessarily just to preach. My role is to equip. My role. And the second thing is that she said that actually the church shouldn't expect sermon every Sabbath. So I connected those two things. There will be no sermon, but there will be some equipping you with some. I believe that this will be helpful, especially to those who are preaching sometimes. It's very, very helpful. This is something that can help everyone to take something more from the Bible. And I have some ideas what to do, but I'm not sure if our technicals will allow us to do something more today. But I want to share with you some special methods that we have, and I believe that this is something that usually we are using, but we don't know that we are actually using that method. Okay, so this narrative narrative structure helps us to get something more from the Bible. Okay, so today we will try. We'll explain you this method, and then we will try to use it on the story that everyone knows. That's why I chose the story that everyone knows very well. And we will see if we can take something more from that story just by using this method, okay? So here's the thing. Oh, it works better when it's on. Okay. So here's the thing. Oh, I know you see something. I will explain it to you better, and you will see what's on my mind. Okay. So here's the thing. Usually, when we have a story in the Bible, this story is usually told by this structure. So in the beginning, there is initial situation. So generally, the beginning, the narrator provides information that is necessary to understand the whole story, the circumstances of the action, time, space, and its characters are given, right? So on the beginning, there is a situation that we have. Then the story tells about a problem. There is a complication, right? So something is happening. There is a problem, accident, obstacle that requires solution, and from this point the reader sees the problem and can think about it. Okay, so there is a problem. The next thing is transforming action. It shows other previously unmentioned aspect of the problem or disruptions to its solution, and so on and so on. Then there is denouement or solution. That is the point where everything, the whole problem, the whole complication is solved. And then final situation. So it's about, what happened after this problem was solved. So I can tell you that almost every biblical story is written that way. Sometimes some points are missing, that's true, but usually not. Sometimes one of these points may be just a few words, but you can always find this structure. So let's go through it. Let's read Book of Daniel, chapter 3. We all know Book of Daniel, chapter 3, right? This is the story when three gentlemen, Jewish gentlemen, three young men are in the Babylon, and the king Nebuchadnezzar is making this monument, and he is asking everyone to bow down in front of it, and so on and so on. So we actually all know that story. True? All right. So we will read it either way. So is there anyone here who wants to read? Okay, we have a reader. So let's start with the first 7 verses, because that's the initial situation.
Daniel, the 3rd chapter, 1 through 7.
Is it on?
Chapter 3, 1 through 7. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and its width 6 cubits. That's 90 foot tall and 9 feet wide. He set it up in the plain of Europe, in the province of Babylon. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to gather together the satraps, the administrators, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So the satraps, the administrators, the governors, counselors, treasurers, the judges, magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered together for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before that image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that at the time you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the harp, the lyre, and the psaltery, and symphony, with all kinds of music, you shall fall down and worship the gold image that the king Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace." So at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the horn, flute, harp, and lyre in symphony, with all the kinds of music, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshiped the gold image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up.
Thank you. So what's the initial situation? We are working together. I'm expecting you to answer. What's the situation? Worship? Well, okay. False worship, right? Okay. Well, the worship, yeah. Actually, it was forced worship. What? That's for sure, right? That they are forced.
Just imagine people coming in there and all this flame, there's this over the side, there's this fiery furnace, and they see the smoke coming up as they're going through there, you know?
Uh-huh. That's really amazing because actually Mike, I don't know if you know this method, but actually Mike is doing exactly what he should do. When you read the story, when you understand that it's divided by 5 different sections, you can see those sections, you can read the story, and you can actually try to imagine what's happening. You can try to be there, you know, you can try to imagine this huge golden monument that is there. And you can see all those, we don't know how many people, if this is hundreds or thousands of people there, you know, on this valley, you know, and looking at this monument, and all of those sounds, and of trumpets and all of those instruments, and you can be there, you know, and how crazy it is. Do you know how much gold do you need to build that huge monument? Well, some of this gold was taken from, they had a lot of gold. I can tell you something. Usually, we read this story, and just because it's so close to Daniel chapter 2, we think that this is something that happened just after this story. But actually, it's not true. And this is interesting because we have a lot of information about King Nebuchadnezzar attacking all the nations that were around the Babylon for years. And you know why he was attacking this? Well, those historical documents are not explaining this, but we know from the Bible that Nebuchadnezzar, what he wanted to do was to collect enough gold to create this monument. So it took years, for years he was collecting money, for years he was collecting gold to make such a huge monument. So he was there and he was preparing this for years, and finally he was able to do it, and he had to be so proud of it, right? And he is there and he's saying, well, now I am able to convince all the gods that are inside, to convince all the gods that they should listen to me and make Babylon eternal. Right? That's exactly what he was doing. Okay, so that's our initial situation. Welcome. Yeah?
You know, you mentioned Daniel 2. You mentioned Daniel 2, and there was a statue in a dream that he had,
Yeah.
Daniel 2, and just the head was gold.
Yeah.
But he made the whole thing gold, so he was defying that prophecy.
Yeah, that's right.
He was defying the God who gave him the dream of that prophecy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's
What's going on there? Yeah.
That's really something, right? Because he got a dream, and not a good dream like Martin Luther King, right? He got a dream, and this dream was about him being a head of gold, right? But this dream really means that that there will be next kingdom and next, right? So, who gave that dream to King Nebuchadnezzar? That was actually, for Nebuchadnezzar, that was a god, right? For us, this is the god. But for him, that was a god, you know, plenty of gods, right? So that's why they were there. They were there at this valley, and they were discussing it, and hey, let's make a monument, you know, and bring the representatives of all the gods That's why those three gentlemen were there. They were representatives of God, Yahweh, of Jewish God, right? So, huge pressure, right? And they are all there. Okay. So let's go through this, through this story, and then we will try to get something more, okay? John, can I ask you to read verses 8 to 18? That's the complication. John, you can read it everywhere you are.
Oh, okay. Verse 8 through 18. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and accused the Jews. They spoke and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, the flute, harp, lyre, psaltery, and symphony, with all kinds of music, shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not paid due regard to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the gold image which you have set up. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, gave the command to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the gold image which I have set up? Now, if you are ready, at the time you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the harp, the lyre, and the psaltery, in symphony, with all kinds of music, and you fall down and you worship the image which I have made, good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you from my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up.
So what's the complication about? They are troublemakers. Okay. Well, they're. We can actually say that. Well, my question is, was it a bad idea from the perspective of Nebuchadnezzar to do it? To convince all the gods to let Babylon be eternal. Was that a bad idea? Just try to imagine, you are King Nebuchadnezzar. And you have this idea to make your country, your kingdom eternal. Is this a bad idea?
It's forced worship.
Oh, that's your idea. That's what you think. That's actually what those three young men were thinking. But from the perspective of King Nebuchadnezzar, that was a great idea, right? I can even tell you something. Even from humanistic point of view, that's really great. You have one kingdom that rules over the whole planet. You know what does it mean? It means no wars, right? No problems. Think about this. How many people died in wars? Actually, we can, because we know some story, we know that There were millions of them that died, you know, from Persians, from Greece, from Rome, right? Wouldn't it be better idea just to have one kingdom that rules everywhere and the problem solved? John?
Well, we did have one kingdom in heaven above, and one rebelled and took a third with him.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the different kind of the kingdom, but actually that's the kind of kingdom that God wants to recreate, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Another kingdom out there waiting to come.
Yeah.
And so politically, he's shooting down anybody who might be thinking about joining or, you know, conspiring with the Medes and the Persians, right? I mean, if this is really going, so this is all kind of the political backdrop that he's going to counteract, so to speak.
So actually the thing is that, you know that saying that power corrupts and total power corrupts totally, right? That's true, right? So actually it's not a very good idea to count on any king that this will be a good king, you know, and everything will be perfect and there will be no wars and so on and so on. That's not the solution. And especially when we understand that the Babylon was not a very good system to live in, right? But actually, when there were three young Jews, who decided not to bow down in front of this monument, why didn't they want to do it? Yes?
They refused to, get down and worship other gods, and that's why the Nebuchadnezzar was furious, because he was mad, because he wanted everybody to bow down to the golden image. But they said, no matter what, we will not bow down, because we only worship one God, and that's God Almighty.
And that's interesting, you know. Sometimes we may think about them that, hey, they just lost their own country, and they are in slavery. I'm not sure if we can call it slavery, you know. But they are not. They don't do what they wanted to do, right? They would like to be somewhere in Israel and do something for other Jews and so on and so on. But they are there, you know. So king is actually their boss, right? And they are there. They have to do something. They had a high position. Yeah. So the question actually is this easier to be faithful to God or be unfaithful to your boss in that situation? Because they actually knew that they can lose everything, right? So, yeah, they had high positions. They were there. And still they decided to be what? To be faithful to God. Why? Because the second commandment says, don't bow down, right? Don't make an image. Don't worship it. Okay. So we see the complication, right? 3 young Jews, they were complication. Okay. What's the transforming action? Let's read verses 19 to 23.
Through 23. Then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the expression on his face changed toward Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He spoke and commanded that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. And he commanded certain mighty men of valor who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their trousers, their turbans, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace.
You know, one thing that's off topic. I remember once when I was, you know, that there are some crazy scientists that they are trying to say that every miracle in the Bible, you know, that wasn't a miracle, and they are trying to find scientific explanation to everything, you know, and that's really crazy. But they are doing this. And I remember once, you know, I was watching some TV program about this story, you know, and they were saying, oh yeah, it's possible, you know, that this furnace, you know, that they found a place that they could be there and survive, and so on and so on. But actually what that story is saying is that people who were taking them there were what? Were burned, right? And well, if you want to explain all the miracles, good luck. Okay. So what's the transforming action? What's happening here? There is a sentence, right? Those 3 gentlemen, they were sentenced to death. And the king Nebuchadnezzar, he said, okay, let's burn it 7 times more. Which is actually pretty much interesting because he decided to do it 7 times more, not 6 times. You know why it's interesting? Because the Babylonian system is counting everything by 6. In the Bible, what God is counting, He is always counting by 7, by 3, or by 12, right? But Babylonian system is always by 6. That's why this monument, he was 60 feet? No, yes, but that was, 60 by 6. And actually, I can tell you everything about this. You know that? Do you know why the circle? Why it have 360 degrees? Because it's Babylonian. It's 60 times 6. Do you know why an hour have 60 minutes? Do you know why our day and night? Why do we have 24 hours? That's because of 6s. Do you know? Well, everything is about 6s. In Babylon, the Babylonian system is totally about 6s. Probably that's the reason why we have 666 in Revelation chapter 13. So when we have this, and King Nebuchadnezzar, he's not saying, burn it 6 times more, according to what they believe. Burn it 7 times more, according to what they believe. That's interesting, right? All right. That's a very good question.
Because the whole time, those
Yeah.
Time, time to do things.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. You're right. Usually we read it as it was immediately, right? But it had to take time. Very good idea. Very good. All right. Denouement, the solution. Let's read verses 24 to 29.
Daniel 3:24 through 29. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?" They answered and said to the king, "True, O king." "Look," he answered, "I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God." Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke, saying, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here." Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came from the midst of the fire. And the satraps, administrators, governors, and the king's counselors gathered together, and they saw these men on whose bodies the fire had no power. The hair of their head was not singed, nor were their garments affected, and the smell of fire was not even on them. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him. And they have frustrated the king's word and yielded their bodies that they should not serve nor worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make a decree that any people, nation, or language which speaks anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made an ash heap, because there is no other God who can deliver like this."
Actually, I believe that we touched final situation. I think I should double check it before. But what's the solution? What was the solution in that situation? So they had to be faithful. They had to keep being faithful, right? Because they were faithful, they had to keep it, right? And the solution was what? God saved them how? That's right.
He kept them from being singed or anything. Even their clothes and hair was not even touched, and they didn't even smell like fire or anything.
That's right.
Because they were faithful
That's right.
to the Almighty.
Amen.
So they were saved, Mike said, by God's presence, right? That was the only solution back then. There was nothing they could do, right? What else can you do? There is no higher judge than king. There is no one that you can say, "Hey, let's ask someone else if this person can help me or not," and so on, right? So actually, there's nothing they could do. The only thing they could do was to trust God, right? And and the final situation, let's read verse 30.
Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon.
So they got promoted. That's interesting, right? Because the same king who already tried to kill them, then he said, "Okay, well, maybe I should promote you," right? They were against him. Actually, because they were faithful to God, he couldn't make his plan come true. So why actually did he promote them? What was the reason to promote them? Any ideas? Uh-huh. That's a good idea. So so he was afraid of the God, right? Of God Almighty. And actually, it is true. We always have to remember, we have a little bit different way of thinking, right? Because in our understanding, usually when something happens, we can say, well, it happened. But that time, when something happens, it means that gods are doing something, right? And you know what? Usually, that was better to live in peace with gods rather than fight with them, right? So when he understood that those young guys are protected by their own God, and this God, he is really powerful. So it means that actually it is better to promote them and to live in peace with this God, right? But from this understanding, what we can really see actually is that King Nebuchadnezzar, he was still thinking about this God as their God. That's why we have the story from the Daniel chapter 4, when God had to humiliate King Nebuchadnezzar. But he was still thinking about their God. So his way of thinking, he was thinking this way: I will be friends to them and they are friends to God, so, they will protect me, right? That was their way of thinking. Okay. Now I think that we need to talk about implication, because there is a nice story, right? Let's say about application, okay? What's the application? So the initial situation is that King Nebuchadnezzar is built a golden image in the valley of Dura and commanded all his subjects to worship it, right? And so application is something that, those questions that we can ask, or the knowledge that we can get to us, what's in that story, what's in that part that can help us to get some wisdom from it. Okay, so I will do this with you with the first thing, the application for the first for the initial situation. Okay, so my application is we have this story, and the question is. So we know that King Nebuchadnezzar is building this golden image. And my application is, what challenges are you facing today? What are our challenges? As a Christian, as a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, do we have any challenges, or God is protecting us and there is no problem at all in our lives? Yeah, Mary.
I am forever being challenged by I think yeah, they put it there on purpose. But my husband is like if all men, they're stubborn, but not all of them. But my husband is, and not only that, but he's very forceful, and he's always yelling and telling me what to do. And I said, honey, I know how to cook. I know how to do stuff, But he's forever telling me, well, just in case. So anyways, but the thing is, especially with his health, he doesn't want to go to the doctor because he says, well, they're not going to tell me anything. I says, well,
oh,
what are you
such
going
a
to do?
man.
Yes, but the thing is, I know And that's why, the verse that we read today about Yahweh being our light, and, I have that in my bathroom and I read it all the time. And I also have another one where it says that be still and know that I am God, or I am Yahweh, because
Okay.
that's what I use. But, I have to constantly pray to the Almighty to just give me patience. Patience, love, and gentleness towards Him, because I have to be the light to Him, and that's what we forget, that we have to represent the Almighty. We have to represent what Yeshua would, what the Messiah would do, and sometimes it's hard, because I forget, and I have a temper too, but Yahweh has helped me, He has just, He knows how to take things away from you and put Himself, so He just remembers that we are to be just like His Son, always.
So sometimes
Thank you.
the neighborhood, the people that are around us, the environment that we are living in is challenging our what we believe as a Christians, right? And this might be really, really hard. Okay. Sometimes, especially when, when we have mixed marriages, the problem might be like the husband that is saying, "Hey, why are you going to the church once again? Hey, are you crazy? Wouldn't you like to stay with me? Hey, spend some time with me, not go to the church," and so on, right? Right? This might be a challenge, right? What we believe is that on the Saturday we should be where? We should be in the church. We should be with others, right? That's exactly what we believe. But there sometimes people, usually members of the family that we are living in, right? They are saying, hey, don't go to church. Spend some time with me, right? Okay. What other challenges? Marianne? So actually, you are. I understand this is connected. That's actually the answer to the third question. What statues do we have right now, right? Because education, money, pleasure, that might be our gods, right? That might be our images that we want to worship. That might be our images. And actually, I understand this is everything, that this is connected, right? Because right now, when you are living in this world, just look at this. When you have friends, real story. Actually, the closest friend to my wife, Asha. So her friend, while she was studying to be a doctor, very hard studies, and she chose one of the best Polish universities. So that was extremely hard, and all the students, they were learning 7 days a week. Every free time they were spending reading the books, and preparing for the exams, and so on and so on. And you know what she was doing during the Sabbath? She was she was reading the Bible. She was resting from this. And you know what other students were telling her? You're crazy! How do you want to pass the exam if you don't spend every time reading those books and preparing for the exams? You're crazy. Don't do it. Stay with us, right? So actually, all of them wanted to pass. All of them wanted to be a doctor, right? But she said, no, this is my decision to be faithful to God. When He says I have to keep the Sabbath, I will keep the Sabbath. And I can tell you, I know it wasn't easy to her. It wasn't easy. So yeah, we had to encourage her a little bit, you know. And actually, I can tell you, my understanding is that actually she got a bigger blessings because she kept the Sabbath. Because if you know that you have this one day when you can, you know, rest from everything, that's really helpful, even if you have very hard tests to pass, right? Yes.
I don't think I need it.
Well, we are streaming it, so actually the people who
Yeah.
are watching us
Well,
online.
I just wanted to say that, especially what's going on right now with all the crime and all the, you know, situation with the political, you know, I get discouraged at times, you know, because I'm saying, oh, you know, I pray for my kids, but nobody's listening, but then I have to remember that the Almighty is in charge, you know, that He is in charge of what's going on.
Yeah.
Amen.
So actually, this is also something, you know, how do you feel when your friends do something stupid, right? Because King Nebuchadnezzar, well, he wasn't acting stupid from his perspective, right? But from our perspective, that wasn't very wise, right? And so this is exactly what's happening, right? So that's those things that we can take from this part one. We have 4 more. Okay, let's move forward. So let's talk about complications. So the complication is, I'm not showing this to you right now because you will have my questions. And I want you to make your own questions, okay? So the complications is 3 Jews refused to obey this order, okay? So what questions, don't look at screen. So what lesson can we take from this part, that those 3 Jews refused to obey this order?
They must be grounded over a period of time, and their character developed.
Okay.
They must, so their characters have been developing over time, and they became firmer in their confidence in God. Because I mean, what they say here is, we don't need any time to think this over. Whatever happens, happens. God's going to deliver us, and we know He's going to deliver us. Now, I'm assuming they thought resurrection, you know, but whatever, doesn't matter. We're not going to serve these silly gods of yours, which is really what he probably heard, you know. So they had they had spent time becoming stronger in faith. So this was not just something that just showed up one day and they just, you know, made up their minds. You know?
Oh, obviously, you're right. Their faith is not something that they get that day, right? They had to remain faithful for their whole life, right? Yeah? Okay.
It's like that with just about everything. When game is on, you're either prepared or you're not. And these guys were prepared.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. What else? What else? What application can we have from that part?
When your faith is very deep and very strong, I think that you're able to develop trust in, you know, in a person and God. And I think that's how they were. I mean, eventually they became so trusting of God that they didn't even have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was an instantaneous decision, even though it took a long time to get to that point. But yeah, I really believe that that's how you develop trust.
That's actually pretty nice what you're saying. And actually, when you are faithful, you have totally different point of view. You know, a few weeks ago, I met some young guy, and he was talking. He told me that Yellowstone is a huge volcano, and if when this erupts, this can destroy half of America, and actually also our part where we are living, you know. So, and he said, no, I'm so afraid of it. Actually, when he said it, you know what was my first reaction? My first reaction was, oh, thank God I am Christian and I don't care. Right? Because if this happens, then you know that the next thing I will see is God, is Christ coming here, you know, to take me to be with Him. I don't care. I can die right now, you know, and the next thing, you know, I'm opening my eyes and, oh, Christ, yes, you are here, you know, and amen. So we have totally different point of view when we trust in God, right? Totally different point of view. Okay, Marianne.
We're not going to be thrown into a fiery furnace, but you know, when you're out with other people, it's a reminder to whatever you believe in to stay strong in that and not give in to society and whatever else is going on around you.
Mm-hmm. Be faithful no matter what. And usually what is at stake when we want to be faithful to God? We can lose our jobs. People can make fun of us. But I don't think that anyone would like to kill us because we want to keep the Sabbath or do something else like this, right?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Jesus said, little things matter.
Yeah, little things matter.
If you're faithful in the small things,
You'll be faithful in the large,
Yeah.
the more important things. So these gentlemen probably were faithful in the small items. Obviously, we know in their diet they were, right?
That's right.
And so they took health reform seriously. Their minds were clear. And so these little things added up. So when the big show happened, they were not found wanting.
Yeah. Actually, they reject health reform. You know why? Because they were keeping health diet like all the time, and then someone said, hey, eat everything, and they reject this health reform, right? Because that was a good reform, right? So I know. They were faithful in their diet. They had to be faithful, and you know what? They had to be pretty young. They had to be before their 13-year-old, you know? Being so faithful when you have, I don't know, they could be like 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe 12-year-old. You know, being faithful is not that easy, especially when you were taken by those other forces, you know, by Babylon. They were taken to their slavery, right? Well, they were not slaves probably only because they were born in good families, right? But obviously they were castrated, so they will not be, you know, they were not able to have their own kids and so on and so on. It's not very easy life, right? We are usually we are thinking about this from the perspective, oh yeah, they had high position, they had this, and all they had to do is be faithful. But it's really hard to be faithful in that situation. It's really hard. And even though, but God still is helping them because they decided to be faithful to God. So actually, you answered, I believe, all of my questions, right? What is your response? What is your reaction to the challenges you face? That's actually something that everyone should answer himself or herself, right? what can help you to preserve in times of trial. What can we do? What can we do? Pray. Wonderful. What else? Trust in the Lord. Okay. What else? Obey. Trust and obey.
Stay in His Word.
Excuse me?
Stay in His Word.
Stay in His Word. So let's start with know His Word. First, you have to know His Word, and then you can stay in it. Okay. What else? We actually mentioned to be faithful in small things, right? Okay. And how do you know that what you insist on is right? That's a very good question. Why they were so stubborn? Because they knew that they are right. Right? They knew it. But sometimes, well, you know that Satan is master in, how to say it, master of doubts. He started with doubt, right? When he talked to Eve, he said, oh, is God truly said something? He is master of that trick. When he was talking to Christ, he was quoting the Bible. He is master of doubts. How can you know that what you believe is really true? That's a very good question, right? What can you do? How can you know? Study the Bible? Okay. We have several thousand churches, Christian churches in America. They all study the Bible and they all say that they have the truth.
God's Holy Spirit.
Okay. They all say that they do it. But actually, well, I'm saying this, because I'm playing this game, I'm playing this doubt game. Of course, the Bible is the answer. Of course, the Holy Spirit is the answer, right? What else? What else? You know what? Humbleness. Humbleness is the answer. Because you can say, I have to be. I remember once, and this is true, I was listening to some report, and there was a lady that was asked about something that was happening in her church. That was actually the Catholic Church, and it doesn't matter what was it about, okay? But the reporter asked her a question about something that was happening in her church, and her answer was, well, I can't change my faith because it actually means that what I believed for my whole life was a lie and I don't accept it. This is exactly what we do, right? Hey, just because I believed in something for years, that have to be true. No, it doesn't. Right? Humbleness is answer. When we read the Bible with the humbleness, we can say, okay, God, what else can you say to me? God, is there anything I can improve in my life? Of course, with your power, right? But there is a question that we should constantly ask God. God, is there anything I can improve? We should do it. We should read the Bible with a humbleness, with understanding that we could be wrong in the past, but we don't want to be wrong in the future. Right? Okay. Then we have transforming action. So we have this part when King Nebuchadnezzar sentences Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to death. ordering them to be thrown into the fiery furnace. So, what application do we have here? Hey, we have potluck today, but you have to deserve it. Okay, transforming action. King Nebuchadnezzar sentences Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to death, ordering them to be thrown into the fiery furnace. So what's the application? What can we take for us from that part of the story?
They submitted. There's no record of them resisting. They resisted. If they had resisted, then then there would have been torn clothes and turbans would have been all over the place. But the writer specifically tells us that when they were tied up, they had all their garments on, which means they didn't put up a fight. And they just said, we'll leave this in God's hands. We stood up for the truth as best we know it. We're going to leave the results to God. And wow, were they witnesses.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have to be faithful, right?
Well, we choose to be faithful.
Yeah.
And we leave it up to God to give us the strength to be faithful. I don't know if I would quite put it we have to be, but I think we will be if we allow God to minister to our hearts in a crisis and prepare us now before the crisis is here.
Mm-hmm.
Prepare us for the crisis.
So faithfulness will be more natural to us, right?
Yes.
Much more natural. Okay. What else? What else?
Pray to the Almighty that, and He does give us that assurance, because He has proven in our lives when we needed Him, He's been there time and time again. So I think we just need to be firm in our beliefs.
Okay. We are going to very interesting and I believe very dangerous point. Okay. My question is, from your experience, what can you expect as a result of your obedience to God? Thank you. Because sometimes, we are thinking about ourselves, we are thinking, hey, if I will be faithful to God, then everything will be great, and He will save. No, sometimes it's really hard, okay? When I was studying in the University of Wrocław in Poland, and that was just a political studies, but I was really good at this, I can tell you, I had one doctor and she told me, hey, I would like you to do a PhD and I would like to help you with this. And I was thinking, hey, PhD? That's nice, right? So when I was on my second year, I had a situation with exam on Sabbath, and the doctor that didn't want to change this exam date for me, and so on and so on. And you know what? And God helped me with this. God helped me with this. But I remember, the year next year, I had a situation, one exam, and that was the exam from English. I should pass this exam. Okay? But I couldn't do it because this exam was on Saturday and no other date. And that one exam stopped me from continuing my studies because I couldn't do it. I finished my bachelor's degree, but I couldn't go further. Next year, I did this exam, I did my bachelor's, but I wasn't able to continue my studies because of this one exam. I lost 1 year of my studies. Actually, I lost my status as a student in Poland. I couldn't continue my studies because of this one exam. That's why I am here today. Because then I went to the seminary to become a pastor, right? So God had his own way, but it doesn't mean that, God can do something, or not. It doesn't matter what happens. We have to be faithful, right? How do you feel when you are punished for your obedience? Have you ever lost your job because of faithfulness? Have you ever lost your relationships to anyone? That could be your family members or something. How do you feel about this? How do you feel when you are doing what is good? You are faithful to God, and then you are losing something. How do you feel about this? Broken. It is terrible. It is terrible. Oh yeah, that can weaken your relationship, of course.
I think this is why, we're encouraged to continue to look at the cross, and to seek to comprehend the depth of God's love and what it cost him, because his faithfulness cost him quite a bit, cost him relationships that are going to last that are gone forever, I think for me personally, being misunderstood or being accused of things falsely, sometimes being accused of things accurately, but many times they're false. Looking to him and seeing who he is and what he's gone through kind of takes the edge off, and now the focus is not on me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the focus is on me, then it becomes about me.
So you are actually even answering a little bit to the last question: how to preserve despite those problems? How to preserve? How to keep your faith? Right? Sometimes, you know what? You just have to close your eyes and walk through it. And you know what? I would like to have more answers to you, but that's the only solution I know. Just close your eyes and walk through it and keep trusting God. This is something that I understood during, my pastoral work and my whole Christian life. Troubles will happen. Problems will happen. And you only have two solutions. You can walk through them with God, or you can walk through them without God. No other options. But when you are going through them with God, it means that God is with you. But when you are going through them without God, it means that the troubles remains, but you are losing your God. Close your eyes and walk through it with God. Trust Him.
These three young men, you talked about humility earlier. These three young men had been snatched from their homeland, and their God and their religion humiliated. Mm-hmm. And God, in humbleness, allowed it to happen. He was willing to have his name dragged through the dirt. There's all kinds of reasons that we can go back to, but they saw the humbleness of God, mm-hmm. and him allowing himself to be humiliated, and that he still did not leave them, and was still who he was in spite of it. So now they observe God, the humility of God, and they're willing to allow that to be reproduced in them.
Mhm.
And it saved them from making a drastic mistake. Because if they would have bowed down, they would have humiliated him more, and they refused to do that.
Actually, that's the reason why it's better to do it in a group, you know. I knew that God was humiliated, you know, in chapter 1 when his sanctuary was destroyed and so on. But I didn't connect this with chapter 3, that those 3 young men, they saw his God being humiliated, right? Very good point, very good point. Okay. We have to move forward, you know, I'm sorry. Okay, what's the solution? We have 3 Jews are miraculously saved. The fire does not burn their bodies, and as a result, the king acknowledged the God of Israel. And by application, how God can help you today? How God can help us today with our troubles, with our situations. Can He help us? What can He do? Oh, give us peace. That's really nice. Right? That's really interesting. Okay. Does God always work through miracles? No. You know that there are situations in the Bible, there is something that I don't have an answer, and I am asking this question myself, you know, for years. And I know that I will never have this answer, and I'm sure that I will ask this question to God when I will be in heaven. Because we have a story in Acts of Apostles. We have a story when Apostle John was captured and killed in prison. And in the same chapter, Apostle Peter was miraculously saved. Would it harm God to do one more miracle? Why God helped Peter, but He didn't help James, sorry. Thank you. James. Why God helped one and didn't help the other? Oh, because He had a plan, right? But we would like to know this plan. Right? We would like to know it. And you know what? I can tell you one thing. We don't know how God will react. We don't know what God would do. But we can always trust that whatever He do is always the best. Is this what you wanted to say?
Maybe there's times when what He's doing is not for us to question. I don't know. You know, sometimes it's just things you don't understand what happened, why they happened. We could go nuts thinking about that.
Yeah.
Because we would apply it to our everyday life as why somebody dies at 12 years old, and you know what I mean? Somebody else
Yeah.
lives to 1,000.
Yeah.
So I think it's blind faith that God is trying to develop in us, maybe just to have blind faith, knowing that all things work for the good,
Yeah.
for those that love God.
You know that's the thing, you know. Sometimes I see Christians that are saying that, hey, something bad happened in your life because you don't have enough faith. And that's crazy. And that's crazy. God sometimes makes miracles, sometimes He's not doing them. But we can always trust Him. That when we are giving this case into His hands, it means that He is doing whatever is the best for us. Okay, move forward. I see people going out. I knew that was too long. Sorry. Okay, final situation. King exalts three Jews who remain faithful to God, okay? Can God be glorified in the misfortune that befalls me? Something bad happens to me. Can bad situation in my life can glorify God? Is this possible? How is it possible? Excuse me? It's okay, how we respond? Okay, yeah.
Despite the situation, it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter, you know, how do I say this? I mean, no matter the circumstances, our response isn't impacted. I mean, we still look to Him.
So I will give you an example. Christians in the arena, they were killed there. And you know what Christians in this arena, what they were doing? They were singing the songs, they were worshiping God. And all the crowd that was there, and they were looking at them being killed by the lions and the gladiators and all the, I don't know, wild animals. And people were looking at this, and what they were saying, hey, there is something different. They are going to die, and they are still worshiping their God. Right?
Yeah, and then they have to go home.
And-
Think about it, of course, the Holy Spirit pressing something on them. You know, so as this, so what is God doing? You know, He's appealing to every human heart, including theirs. So this is having an impact on the whole realm of society.
That's
You
right.
know? So I was just about to say, you know, I mean, the Saul of Tarsus couldn't sleep at night after that, you know. So and eventually the revelation of what had happened knocked him off his horse. So
Yeah.
so yeah.
So that's actually the other question. Does obedience to God always bring tangible benefits? It depends from what perspective, right?
Not from a human perspective, maybe. You know?
It depends on the perspective, right? Because if we understand that this is God's work, and we are surrendering ourselves to God, sometimes we may lose something, but God will always use it in the best way, right? So yeah, it might be not beneficial to us right now, but it will bring benefits in heaven, because we will all be there, and people that God will save because we had to walk through something, they also be there, right? That's amazing. That's really amazing.
Pastor,
Yes.
did you meet your wife because you missed that exam?
She met me because of this.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, that's a little. Well, Asha, she had to walk through it. You know, her mother. She wasn't very happy because when she became an Adventist, and she was trying to do everything that was possible to stop her from being an Adventist. So she took her phone, her computer, she took everything from her, you know, just to stop any contacts. She went to the school and said that Asha is in a cult, and she went to the police and said that her underage daughter is molested by pastor, and so on and so on. So so that's what was happening, and this pastor told us when we had, that was just the beginning of my ministry. So this pastor asked us, other pastors, to pray for one young lady that want to be an Adventist, and so on. And I said, hey, that should be, that have to be really nice Christian lady that wants to be faithful to God, even though she had to go through these troubles. So I said, I would like to meet her one day. And one day at the camp meeting, I was there at the evening prayer, and as a pastor, I just asked, hey, is there anything you would like me to pray? And Asha said, well, could you pray for my mother because she's not very happy that I am Adventist? And I said, okay, where are you from? She said, from Lemberg. That was the city. That was that city. So I said, okay, so tomorrow we have to go for a walk and talk for a little while. So we are talking from that time about 9 years, and we are still talking to each other. That's great. So that's right. Sometimes we are going through the trials, through the troubles, but God have His plan. So that's why it's always worth to be faithful to God, you know. I know that usually we read this story and we say, hey, in the future, we will go to the trials. But you know what? Trials happens this time. We have to go to many troubles and be faithful to God. And we know that it might be not non-beneficial to us, but it is always better to be faithful, to keep faithful. So I would like to encourage you to remember these 5 sections and try to read the stories in the Bible and try to divide them into those 5 sections. And I believe that you can take from the Bible much more than when you are just reading it and that's it. And I believe that this is something that God is leading us through. So, without the Bible, we can't know God. And it is worthy to know God. It's great to know God because He is the one who can save us.